Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mets Gospel according to Mark Healey. Yes, there's a funny name. I don't think that I'm preaching the gospel, but growing up as a kid, I'm a Catholic schoolboy. I go to Mass every Sunday and wonder why the gospel according to Mark was not the gospel every single, Sunday. And in fact, it's very rare that the gospel is according to Mark. So, you know, even back when I was a kid, when it was the gospel according to Mark, the priest would say, "This is the gospel according to Mark." I'd be like, "Yes." And it happened this last Sunday. Which was pretty cool. And that's where the name comes from, that's it. I don't think that I'm preaching the gospel, but I do think that it's important for me to share some of my feelings. I purposely did not do this yesterday because I was just so, I don't want to say I was enraged because, I don't want people to think, I don't want any of you to think that I get this aggravated about the Mets. I don't, but I do get aggravated when people in my industry, um, you know, are doing such a poor job of reporting on the Mets front office search. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for anyone who thinks I'm insulting them. I'm sorry if you think that I'm questioning your integrity. I'm sorry if you are desperate at this point. We all are. Let's face it. Our industry is in trouble, and I don't work for a clickbait overlord, so I get it. I understand that you have to sell newspapers, but you could sell newspapers in this town by being less willing to pick at the low-hanging fruit and then throwing it to the mob, and letting the mob. I mean, it's just unconscionable. I'm not even going to talk about sports radio. I mean, sports radio, I love sports radio. I love it. I've been listening to it ever since, the Art Rush show back on 77 WABC. That's where I fell in love with sports radio, both Art Rush Jr. and Bill Mazer, the amazing Bill Mazer. And what's funny about Bill Mazer is that I got to be a guest on Bill Mazer's show when I started my career, and we got to liking each other. His son Arnie is a good friend, and so I love sports radio. I love the medium. I love what it is. My one of my favorites, the schmoozer Steve Summers, is leaving us to retire. But I love sports radio. But the problem with sports radio, I guess it's always been, and that's why there's always been this print media slash, TV media slash sports radio divide among those folks, because it just seems to me that people who work in sports radio don't do any research at all on their own. They have access to everyone. They have access to every ballpark. They have access to every clubhouse. Even now that the COVID stuff has been restricted, they have the ability to go anywhere they want. As long as if someone from local sports radio here wanted to go to the GM meetings because they felt it would be really important for them to cover it, they'd figure out a way to do it. I'll be honest. I mean, I would have loved to have gone to the GM meetings. I have a full-time job here at the Wave, so I don't get the opportunity to do that as much as I used to do. I don't get to cover the winter meetings. And frankly, I don't even know if they let me in. I mean, they would. I'm a credentialed reporter, but folks, if you're happy with people just reading stuff in the paper and then just regurgitating it to you as if it's their opinion, well, I have a problem with that. I almost drove off the road yesterday when I was listening to some of the analysis about the Mets' dysfunctional front office. How the Mets front office is more dysfunctional now than it was under Fred Wilpon. I mean, if you believe that, you are a lunatic. I'm sorry. If you believe that, if you could say that with a straight face, you're a lunatic. Okay? Because it is not true. It's just not. And again, let me just rewind for a second. Okay? Let me rewind for a second because I'm already starting to get upset. let's look at the facts. The number one fact is that Sandy Alderson would not be the president of the Mets unless Major League Baseball told Steve Cohen that that was basically what he had to do to be, approved for ownership. That's a fact, folks. You may not want to believe it. You may want to, people say, well, that's not really in writing. And no, folks, Steve Cohen is not the owner of this team unless Sandy Alderson is the team president. So just accept it, because that's what it is. That's the number one fact. Number two fact, if Steve Cohen is this miserable, awful, demanding boss that is being reported in the media by the sports media that know nothing about his company, Sandy Alderson would have been fired. He would have been fired at the end of last season. If this is the terrible, Steve Cohen is so hard to work for. I can't come to work for Steve Cohen in New York. I can't do that. It's a joke. He'd been fired already. There's a reason he's not fired. You know why? Because Steve Cohen can't fire him. He probably can. Here's the third fact. And the whole thing that people are now saying about why I seem to be, a contrarian with everyone else is reporting this. Everyone else is reporting that Sandy Alderson is the problem. I don't like Sandy Alderson. I don't. I've never really liked him. I when I started at Associated Press in 1998, that's when Sandy Alderson left the A's, turned them over to Billy Beane because the A's now we're not going to have any money at all. So he left. He went to the commissioner's office, worked under Bud Selig, and in 1998, and he worked there. He worked there for about 6 or 7 years, and a lot of people thought that Bud Selig was going to retire and that Sandy Alderson was going to become the commissioner. Again, something that no one is talking about, no one is reporting. During that time, Sandy Alderson basically became one of the most least liked people in baseball by owners, by agents. He was the point guy for all these investigations that were going on in the Dominican Republic. And Sandy just pissed off everybody. And that's what Marines do. That's what guys who, look, I gave you an order. You got to follow the order. That's it. Let's go. This is what we got to do. We got to clean this up. It's not good. And sometimes when you're the reformer, when you're somebody who's coming in and reforming something, you're going to get a lot of pushback. It doesn't mean that Sandy was wrong or the owners or anybody was wrong. It's just a fact of that's how it goes. So the whole time that I was at Associated Press, which is like a block away from the Major League Baseball offices, that's all you heard about Sandy Alderson. Oh my God, I hate that guy. And, and at that time, I had kind of liked that Oakland A's team. I wasn't a Jose Canseco guy, but I liked a lot of the guys. I liked Mark McGwire before he became Paul Bunyan. I loved Miguel Tejada. I loved those teams. Those teams were fun that won three straight pennants and one championship. Did they underperform? Yeah, I thought they did. They should have won 3 straight. I can't believe they lost to the 88 Dodgers, but the 88 Mets lost to the 88 Dodgers. But when he got back into baseball and he went to San Diego, he did an okay job. It wasn't great, wasn't bad, but he didn't want it when it looked like Bud Selig wasn't going to retire, and and that he wasn't going to become the commissioner. He went back to baseball because he missed it, he loved it, he wanted to go with San Diego. San Diego needed help at the time, and I understand that during that time he did not want to rehire Bruce Bochy. Again, another example of Sandy not really wanting the manager to run the show, which people, look as a strike against him. I do as well. And then, again, let's understand something else. When the Madoff thing happened and Omar Minaya finally got fired by Fred Wilpon, if anyone thinks that Sandy Alderson was hired by Fred Wilpon, there couldn't be further from the truth. He wasn't hired. There was no interview process. I mean, yeah, they did a little dog and pony show because, you know, that's what Major League Baseball does. They do a little dog and pony show, and Fred Wilpon will come out, you know, just like he said that nothing would change, that the Mets finances would stay the same during the whole Madoff aftermath. Sandy Alderson was placed there by Bud Selig, by Major League Baseball, to help Fred Wilpon, not only to protect their investment because the Mets had been borrowing money from Major League Baseball, but Bud Selig felt sorry for his friend and had let his friend Sandy Alderson go help the Mets. There's no other explanation. People will tell you, oh, Sandy, this and say, the Sandy Alderson regime under Fred Wilpon should never, ever be conflated with what Sandy Alderson is doing now. Anyone who knows anything, anyone who covered that team, knew that Sandy Alderson never knew how much money he would have for any particular player. And then he had to deal with Jeff, and then he had to deal with Fred, and then Fred had to talk to Saul. It was a joke. Anybody that says that the Met organization now is more dysfunctional than the Wilpon, I mean, are you out of your mind? Even when things were good under the Wilpons, it was a disaster. A disaster. I covered the minor leagues from like 2001 until recently, until like the last couple of years. It's a joke. It was a joke. And it was a joke throughout the organization. You know, and trust me, I've written enough. We could do hours. I could do hours on all the things that happened during the Wilpons. And this idea that somehow Steve Cohen, oh God, Steve Cohen is so dysfunctional. He's so I mean, what? Because he tweets? I mean, are you out of your mind? Look, anybody that doesn't want to come here, by the way, I don't know if you saw, Sandy Alderson basically said that a lot of the reasons that people gave because they want to come to New York, which is what I've been saying for months now. But that's okay. He's evading the reality. You know, Sandy Alderson is this, oh God, he's the only time that Sandy Alderson imposes his will on the organization is when it comes to the manager, because he wants to make sure that the manager is going along with what everybody else in the organization is doing. He is not telling the assistant GMs. He's not telling the scouting directors. He's not telling anybody what to do. He was as hands off last year when he could be, before Jared Porter turned out to be a complete pervert, and before Zach Scott decided to, you know, tie one on after a night with the owner. I don't know what's worse, Zach Scott waiting a day to tell his boss that he got pulled over for a DUI, or the fact that when they were talking in negotiations to bring him back, as reported by Tim Britton and Britt Garoli over at The Athletic, his lawyers were like, oh, you treated us badly. I'm talking about bringing you back, dummy. I'm not the one who got pulled over for the DUI. And he got all bent out of shape. You know what? You're out. How about that? How's that suit you? And then people are like, oh, what about Zach Scott? What about him? You know, hey, dummy. You know, you shouldn't have got pulled over for DUI. I have written and said, I don't believe it's a fireable offense, but if that's how you deal with it, like, well, why did you treat me badly? Like, are you kidding me? How about, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. Can I have my job back? I don't know. Why don't you try that? I don't know. And then you got people at the GM meetings asking about Zach Scott. I mean, give me a break. Hey, oh, they shouldn't have fired Zach Scott because the guy jumped back. How about reporting that? You're sitting there, you saw Zach Scott. How about reporting that? That he jumped back, that he was like, yeah, you didn't treat me good. Okay, you're out. You don't like it? Too bad. Don't we want an owner that does that? Don't we want that? Don't we want an owner that's going to call out the players didn't like it. They were very upset. Good. They were terrible. Let's be honest. Outside of Brandon Nimmo, who couldn't stay on the field, but my God, the guy gives 150% and has improved incredibly in center field. And Pete Alonso and Jake DeGrom when he was healthy, and Marcus Stroman, Aaron Loop. I mean, obviously, I'm probably going to forget somebody because it's early and I haven't had enough coffee. But outside of those guys, who played well this year? I mean, the Alderson front office went out and got Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco, and then extended them. The Alderson front office gave Stroman the qualifying offer when he opted out the year before, after being one of the guys say, "Where and when? Let us know where and when." Oh, I'm out. Opt out. And that's not a criticism of Marcus. He can do whatever he wants, but they gave him the qualifying offer. He took it and he made the most of it. Great. Now, they did a lot. Let me tell you something. The Francisco Lindor, the fans might have booed Francisco, but they never turned on him. And look, and Javi Baez, he traded for Javi Baez. They got Rich Hill. Rich Hill was fine down the stretch. Again, could they have done more? Maybe. I don't remember a lot of Met fans clamoring for Soler and Adam Duvall. I don't remember those. And, the Braves did what they did. And they have a great organization. They have a lot of homegrown guys. They do a great job. And they got like 2 beat writers. They got 1 radio station. There's no pressure on them. And I'm not saying that as an excuse. It just is what it is. It's New York. When people tell me there's no difference, of course there's a difference. What are you, out of your mind? Of course there's a difference. When you're driving around in St. Louis, nobody's going, "You suck." Nobody's doing that. I don't understand. I don't understand why, Bryn Alderson is another one. Oh, I love, by the way, I love that Sandy said yesterday when Mike Puma asked about, Bryn Alderson, which I thought was a good question. I'm surprised it wasn't asked previously. And he said it's a red herring. He's right. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Bryn Alderson is simply a guy. If you knew anything about Sandy, anything, the guy is as buttoned down, straight-laced as it is. He's not giving his son a break. I have worked in family businesses my whole life, okay? And not my family business. I mean other people's family businesses. And you have 2 kinds of ways that can go. You can have the Fred Wilpon way, where, your idiot son can't get a job in any other, industry. So you give him the keys to, the ball club because he likes baseball. You have that. And then you have, a situation where Sandy Alderson, his son, worked for 10 years in the Oakland office with the Oakland A's. He worked in their front office. He takes a demotion from scouting coordinator to just scout to come to the Mets, and then works his way up since 2011. And, the person and by the way, the person that promoted Bryn to scouting director was not Sandy Alderson. It was Brody Van Wagenen, who had no reason at all to give Sandy any kind of boost by promoting his son. In fact, Sandy fired Brody when he got the job. So, again, this narrative, you can't, I don't want to be the meat in an Alderson sandwich. Look, if you're that threatened by a team president that doesn't want to run the day-to-day baseball operations, that actually wants somebody to run it, and his son, you're threatened by that, a son who's an assistant GM, then you're not fit for New York anyway. You're not a fit. You're not. So it was probably good, whoever you are, it was probably good that you said no thank you, because it's clear that you don't want to work in New York, because it's really? You're threatened by an assistant GM? You're threatened by a guy who has 1 year left on his contract as team president? What a joke. You must have no self-esteem and zero confidence in your ability to impose your will on the organization. Right? Look, you take a job like that and you impose your will immediately. You're like, look, this is what it is. Hey, Bryn, thanks for your suggestions. Now, here's the thing. Bryn has a very good reputation, a stellar reputation. And if he didn't, folks, if he didn't, we would know. Trust me. If he was not good at his job, everybody in that front office would have been whispering about Brent Alderson since day one. Trust me, that's the way the Mets rolled under Wilpon. That's the way they rolled. Since Steve Cohen took over this team, I've not heard a lot of that whispering. I've not heard a lot of that backstabbing. I haven't heard it. You know, I like the fact that Sandy runs a tight ship. And again, let me reiterate this for everybody that is unsure and wants to call me a shill. I don't like Sandy Alderson. I did not want him to be hired as team president. I didn't want him as GM back in 2010 because I knew that he was just going there to direct traffic and to keep Fred out of jail. That's the only reason he was there. How he was able to put together and some of it was luck, the Carlos Gomez medicals. But you know what? If Sandy Alderson doesn't insist on seeing the medicals, Carlos Gomez is a Met. If that's Jeff Wilpon running that ship, we get Carlos Gomez, who I love, by the way, but he was terrible that year. And you don't get Cespedes, you don't go to the 2015 pennant. Was it luck? Yeah, but you know what? Luck is the residue of design. Sandy did plenty. Yes, he had a lot of Omar's guys in 2015, but he also drafted well. His team drafted well. And again, do you think Sandy Alderson was telling J.P. Ricciardi and Paul DePodesta what to do? Give him a call. Give JP a call. JP's a great guy. Paul Depot is not great with the media, but he's a good guy. He'll tell you the truth. He'll tell you whether or not Sandy is a bad guy. He's not afraid to give his opinion. He's not. Again, I don't like him, not personally or anything like that. Personally, I happen to have a lot of respect for Sandy Alderson because of the way he lives his life. My mom, when my mom was really sick with cancer, it's around the same time that Sandy was leaving and was sick with cancer. And they both went both went to the same doctor. And my dad, who, never passes up an opportunity to introduce himself and say hello to someone, especially someone like Sandy Alderson. My dad loves baseball. He didn't say anything. He just, he felt bad that he was going through what he was going through. He was being there for my mom. And, he just would mention to me, he goes, yeah, I saw Sandy today in the doctor's office. And, he looks okay. He's just giving me like little updates. And, so the fact that he and my mom kind of went through the same thing. Yeah. I mean, as a person, that tempers my outrage, I guess, at the fact that he was brought back. But I knew that I knew and I know that it was, kind of an edict from Major League Baseball. If you hire Steve, if you hire Sandy, Steve, we'll okay and approve your ownership. Otherwise, if you just bring in somebody new and that we don't know, I don't know if we can approve it. And if you don't think that's the way things get done, folks, you're naive. You're just naive. I mean, that's how stuff gets done. A says to B, says to C. Are we really going to let this guy in the club? Are we going to let this guy in? Well, if he has Sandy there, at least Sandy will control him. At least Sandy will, temper down whatever crazy spending this guy's going to want to do. And then, oh my God, he tweeted. Oh, he tweeted. I mean, really? Like that's a problem. And again, like I have no idea whether or not Steve Cohen is a good owner or a bad owner. All I know is that he said he wants to win, that he's going to hold people accountable. And if that's the case, then, whatever. It's not the Mets' fault that people don't want to come here. I look at it this way. I used to tell people, and they tell me I'm arrogant for saying this, but, I'm a pretty good guy. I think I'm a good guy. Some people don't agree, whatever, that's okay. But I feel like if you don't like me, if you can't get along with me, there's something wrong with you. Okay? It's not me, because I want everybody to like me. I've always felt that way. My God, when somebody says something bad, I'm like, why did he say that? What did I do? Honestly, not as bad as I used to be. I have a little bit of a thicker skin now, and not just because of the macaroni. But I mean, folks, do we want the Mets to fail? Is that really what we want? I mean, I think that's what other people want, but is that, as Met fans, is that what we want? I don't. I want the Mets to be successful. And thinking that the Mets are going to fire Sandy, it's not happening. Stop with the threads of Sandy's got to go and this and that. He's not going. The only time he goes is of his own volition, probably at the end of the year, if they're able to hire somebody that he feels strongly about, that Steve Cohen feels strongly about. And then he could be like, all right, my work is done. I'm out. You think he wants to keep doing this? I mean, folks, if you think that Sandy Alderson is a control freak over the front office, everybody in the front office shares the same philosophies that Sandy does. None of them think that the manager should have more say. And that's my biggest problem with Sandy. It's always been my biggest problem with Sandy. That and the fact that he undervalues defense, which it seems that he's changed a little bit. I mean, other than that, I mean, he's not the best GM. He's not the worst GM. He's made some mistakes, but stop comparing what he did with the Wilpons to what he's doing now. In and of itself, the fact that the Sandy Alderson front office offered a qualifying offer to Marcus Stroman last year and to Noah Syndergaard this year and to Michael Conforto, I mean, that would have been the Wilpons would have never done that. They would have never done that. They would have been sitting on their hands the whole time trying to figure out, if we do it, do we get criticized? Or if we do it and they accept, oh my God, we got to pay them. I mean, folks, I understand that people in social media, a lot of people that are using Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff and opining, you got to do better. You got to do better and listen to the people that covered the team all those years. At least the people that are looking at it or trying to look at finding some common ground here instead of LOLing the Mets constantly. It's a joke. It's a joke. The Mets were bad last year. They weren't anywhere near as bad as they have been. And they were, why they were bad? They weren't bad because of the construction of the team. They did everything that you would want outside of maybe signing George Springer. But George Springer, he missed how many games? He missed how many games because of injury? Who would you? I mean, yeah, is George Springer better than Brandon Nimmo? Yeah, he hits more home runs, but I mean, the guy didn't want to come here. I mean, they should have overpaid. The days of the Mets having to overpay for people to come here should be over. You should want to come here. If you don't want to come here, then don't come. We'll do it ourselves. And I feel, if I'm Steve Cohen, I feel that way too. You know what? I got all the money in the world. I can do whatever it is I want. I don't need, it would be great to have a really good general manager. It would be great to have a really good president of baseball operations. But if people are going to snub us, what did Joey Zaza say? If you're not going to give, I'm going to take. Didn't work out well for Joey Zaza, but, I think Steve is a little bit more Michael Corleone than he is Joey Zaza. Don't you? Mr. Multi-billionaire. Look, folks, if I'm betting on anybody in this scenario, I'm betting on Steve Cohen. I'm betting that he's going to eventually figure it out and he's going to win. And he's going to be a guy that when we look back, we're going to look at him with the same kind of admiration that we did Nelson Doubleday. That a guy who came in, he cleaned up the mess, and it wasn't easy. It took the Mets a long time to clean up the mess of M. Donald Grant. The Mets weren't successful really until Frank Cashin makes the trade in 1983 for Keith Hernandez and drafts, does those drafts with, Darryl and Dwight and just changes the face of the franchise. He did it a lot in quiet because of what was going on at the time. At the time, there was no, all it was the newspapers. And even then the newspapers were afraid to overly criticize ownership. Look, folks, I see a media landscape right now that gives Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson more grief than at any time during the Wilpon tenure. And it's sickening to me. It really is. And, you know, when I was a voice in the wilderness criticizing the Wilpons by myself, I was told I was bitter, I was negative, I was somebody that had an agenda, you know, and now I'm a shill because I just want people to report on things fairly rather than, you know, pick at the low hanging fruit. Look deeper, dig deeper, read deeper. And if you don't want to do the work, that's okay. I mean, people who are in the media should be doing the work because that's what they get paid for. People on sports radio need to do a better job of maybe finding out, I don't know, any kind of information that might be helpful to their listeners. You know, because that's why you're there. You're there for the listeners, right? You know that, right? Just like people who are in the media, you're there for the readers, right? That's who you're there for. Your job is to communicate to the readers what's going on, not to LOL the Mets because it sells papers. I understand that's the end game, but you know, we're journalists. We're supposed to be better than that. Okay, we're supposed to be better than that. And you know, give me a chance. You know, if for those of you who don't follow me at Mark C. Healey on Twitter, that's MarkChealey. I don't have clickbait. I have a website with no advertising on it. The only advertising I have is for my book. You know, which I'll be selling autographed copies of. Nice little segue there. At Saturday's Queens Baseball Convention. Which is something I've been a part of and been proud to be a part of for a long time. Keith Blacknick and Dan Tuig do a fantastic job of organizing this great Mets Fan Fest every year. I'll be leading it off with a State of the Mets. Don't worry, guys. I've saved a lot. And we'll have Tim Healey from Newsday, Tim Ryder from the Apple blog, and also Lori Rubinson from WFAN as part of the State of the Mets panel. There's all kinds of great stuff planned. Just go to our story at GothamBaseball.com for more on the QBC. Check out QBC Convention on Twitter, and you can go to QueensBaseballConvention.com for more information and tickets. I know that there are a few tickets left. They are going fast, so you definitely want to get it. It's going to be Saturday, November 13th at Mulcahy's in Wantagh, a great venue. Looking forward to it. We haven't been together in 2 years, so really looking forward to seeing all the Mets fans. My book, Gotham Baseball, New York's all-time team. I still have some copies left. I'll be selling those autographed copies. Looking forward to seeing everyone there, you know, at the event. And certainly looking forward to reconnecting with all of you. That's the Mets gospel for today. I hope that you'll be back for our next installment. Have a good one, everybody.